Thanks all for joining us today. Now with us, Congressman from the 7th District, Dr. Dave Brat, his big convention coming up on Saturday, the same day as my convention, or I would go there. But I have to go to my convention, District 4. And in that district, myself, the lovely Fräulein, my wife, and Robert Ike running for national delegate. So don't forget to vote for us. Meantime, in the 7th District, Dr. Brat about to get renominated in several days. Doctor, good to have you on, sir.
Hey, thanks to be on, John.
Now, we understand at your convention, I was told there's going to be 1,500 people there downtown Richmond. That's a pretty big turnout, don't you think?
Yeah, people are getting excited about the process across the board, and so it's a good sign, people showing up.
All right, we'll see how it plays out. You have no challengers for your campaign to get renominated by the 7th District Republicans, so you will be the nominee and go on to win a second term in November. I can make that prediction because it's pretty easy to make, Dave. So that's
I hope so, but I encourage all the folks in the 7th, get out and sign up to be on my list and pay attention. No, I don't want to take anything for granted. In politics, everybody knows it's up and down by the day.
You never know what's going to happen. I want to start with an amendment that you offered the other day. We're now marking up the National Defense Authorization Act. This is billions and billions of dollars being spent. And you offered a common sense amendment that basically says, well, the Department of Defense owns or leases various properties all over the world. Some of the properties is underutilized or there's no value. So why can't we sell them and return the money back to the taxpayer, pay down the debt? Seems pretty common sense to me, but you've run into stiff resistance.
This, I'm hoping we don't. We'll see. I think the defense folks are good with it. It's kind of like you just said. It's obsolete land, and the foreign country owners of assets or land or whatever can just make an offer to buy it back, and then we don't have to monitor it. You know, everything in government, once the bureaucracy takes it over, there's costs involved.
Right.
And so it seems like a no-brainer, but up in this place, you never know. And so we'll put it in and keep the pressure on until it gets through.
Okay, let's get to presidential politics. Congressman, your House leader, Paul Ryan, the other day saying he's not really there with Trump. He can't, at this time, back the presumptive nominee. Had a big meeting up there. I thought the whole thing was asinine, but that's just me. What's the deal with your leader?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's frustrating because I'm in the House Freedom Caucus, et cetera, and we're told to play team ball all the time, right? And so now it's kind of are we all playing team ball on our presumptive nominee for president? It doesn't look like it. And so it's funny how, you know, the tide shifts depending on what day it is and what issue it's up. I mean, I don't get into the personal stuff, but when the speaker vote was up, I had my 10 principles, and for President Trump's nomination, I got the same principles. And so what I was hoping, I was working behind the scenes to get someone like Newt Gingrich to be a broker between the two and put 10 principles down on paper of what they promised to deliver, right? Not pie-in-the-sky platitudes, but what will they both promise, right? Because Trump is a little up in the air on a couple issues.
Right.
Folks want to know exactly what are you going to do, and so put it down on paper and firm it up. And then same with Speaker Ryan. He's got a big, bold vision for 17, but the American people want to see some promises right now. Mm-hmm. Under Republican leadership, we're doing $535 billion deficit this year alone. I just wrote a Washington Post piece about 3 or 4 days ago. People can go Google that. It's got a summary. And we're losing. I don't think we're in regular order anymore. That was a big promise of the new speaker and of the new leadership team, that we would stay in regular order. And the budget committee, which I'm on, passed a budget, and that budget is not getting a vote. And we're going to back into this high number and do appropriate bills now without any budget. And so I'm doing my best to make sure we stay on the right track.
So no budget, no regular order. Now we're going to go back to the same thing where we're going to be stuck here in November after the election with no budget, time running out, government shutdown. Nobody wants to do that. We're going to have a new president coming in, either Clinton or Trump or Sanders. Somebody new is coming in. We're going to have omnibus, cromnibus. It's going to be the same thing over again. I mean, it's like we keep going down the same path.
And worse, and even worse, we're going to have a lame duck potential. So
That's right.
A bunch of my colleagues Paul Gosar is taking the lead on that. And we're working like crazy to make sure we don't have any lame duck session at all, right? Because that's where just everything gets thrown in the kitchen sink at the end of the year, and the outgoing president doesn't care. I mean, he's already breaking the law every day. I mean, there's executive overreach. Now we got the federal government, right? We have threats from China and Russia and Korea and ISIS and whatever. We got an economy that's growing at 0.7%. And the federal government's main role this week is dealing with bathrooms, right? I mean, you can't make it up. You can't make the people more cynical. There's no enumerated power in the Constitution about the federal government making bathroom policy for local schools. And so I hope the American people are fed up, right? The left has shown its colors. It wants to control every aspect of your life from Washington, D.C., and if you don't get that, you're not paying attention. And I hope we have a sweep on the Republican side this time, just down the ticket everywhere, just to send a clear signal that this country, we cannot sustain ourselves with this kind of governance anymore. It's over.
Congressman, I want to get to the appropriation of funds in the bathroom issue. We've had a lot of callers this week saying, well, wait a minute, how can Obama just say we're not going to send you the money back like he did with Texas or other states? You send the money. I've had a couple people say, well, wait a minute, it's Congress's job to appropriate funds. So how does the executive branch get the power to say we're simply not going to send you your education funding if you don't comply with our bathroom ordinance?
Well, and that gets back to our leadership. We have to fight back, and if you give up all your leverage ahead of time, which we did, right? The Boehner budget is still in play through this coming September. And so when you've given up all your leverage ahead of time, the president can do end runs around you all day long. We can still assert our power. We can pass laws to stop him. But we're still doing this Mitt Romney, autopsy report. We're scared of our shadow, and we're not fighting back. And the American people, I mean, it was Cruz and Trump and Carson and Rand, all the outside. I mean, the American people made it very clear they want us to stand up and fight back against this overreach. And so that's the problem.
So the leadership of the Republican Party right now in the House, led by Paul Ryan, won't fight the bathroom edict, won't fight the genderless bathrooms. Girls or boys going to each other locker rooms. They won't fight any of that. They won't fight Obama not giving the money back, but they want to stand and fight their nominee, Donald Trump. Is there any doubt in your mind that people are just really done with this whole thing, Congressman? Really?
Well, it's just, I mean, there's still a big divide. We got to bring everybody together. And so on the fighting piece, that's why the resolution has to be putting what we want to fight on paper,
right,
and having our leaders agree to do that. And they're not doing that. And, I mean, make sure I'm telling the truth, right? But on the bathroom silliness, I mean, is there any messaging coming out of the House or
Nothing.
Republican Senate?
Nothing.
Right? I don't want to bug just, our leadership. The Senate is more culpable than we are on failed leadership. We at least take the hard votes. The Senate waits to see everything we do, right? So where is our Republican Senate? Are there any talking points, any messaging coming out of this, out of the Republican Party at all on these issues? And I don't think so.
Nothing. Nothing. They looked at a public opinion survey, Congressman, that came out a week ago that showed a majority of Americans right now, and especially millennials, in favor of genderless bathrooms and changing facilities in schools, whatever poll that was, and now they're in hiding. They're just afraid. So, look, they don't do anything, and you're right. Leadership is probably more culpable than you guys in the House because, as you said, they don't vote. I want to get to a potential President Trump. If he becomes president, and I think he is, Dave, I think he's going to win.
Yeah.
When he's president, Dr. Brat, if he were to propose a system of tariffs for companies leaving America, now you're an economist, he would have to get this through Congress. He can't do this through an edict. So he would have to say, I want 10, 15, some number of tariffs of goods and services coming back into the United States for companies that have decided to go elsewhere. Is that something, as an economist, that you'd be able to get behind?
I don't think I'd want to structure it so much as punitive against individual companies, right? If these companies are leaving for some reason, and so the free market logic says, why are these companies leaving? So structurally, I think he'd probably want to lower the corporate rate, and I'd rather go with that route rather than being punitive against companies. But what I think he does have right is why are some companies leaving? Some of it has to do with the other countries' actions abroad. And where Trump has been very strong is he realizes all the levers of power the United States has to use against these countries like China, right? It's not just trade. The trade agreements by themselves are not getting it done, right? So he's saying, hey, country X, you got to step up to the plate, or we're going to take all of our assets, right? Our military budget, our foreign aid budget, our access to our higher ed system, access to our patent system, all of it with trade policy. And if you don't behave and live in the win-win world, right, we free market people, we believe we live in a win-win world. After World War II, we propped up our arch enemies, the Germans and the Japanese, and turned them into friends. That's the way we want to move forward. So you always couch it in positive terms, and you offer the positive contract. But if those countries refuse the positive contract, it's on them. And then they lose all the win-win that comes with it. And so I think that's probably the way he'll end up going. And I agree with you. I think he's going to win.
I think he's going to win also. But if you get back to the tariff situation, and as you know, I'm a protectionist, so you and I are not necessarily on the same page on this particular issue, but a lot of the companies are leaving like they did in the Carrier company in Indianapolis,
right.
The Ford plant that went to Monterey, the Buicks now being manufactured in China. They're leaving for cheap labor. That's why they're leaving. So they go to Mexico or China or wherever they go. Instead of paying $15, $18, $20 an hour, they're paying $2 an hour. Then they ship the goods back to the United States. There's no tariff. They just come in right over the Rio Grande, and there's no savings to the consumer. So the only thing they did was screw the American worker. That's what a tariff system does. It says, hey, if you're going to do that, you're going to have to pay 10, 15, pick a number, 20% to get your goods back in, which means that the economic model to get the slave trade in these foreign lands no longer works for them because that money has gone away in the tariff system and getting their goods back in.
Yeah, well, I agree with you on the logic in terms of the basic goal is the American worker has been shafted for 30 years, right?
Yeah,
the wage rate's been flat.
Absolutely.
And I think you're on to something. We have to structure it very carefully. But I agree with you. And the way I look at that thing is what's the big corporations working through the chamber are looking at H-2B visas and cheap labor and bringing in as much cheap labor as they can here. They say they can't find workers. Well, why is that? Because we got a welfare system that all in at the federal government brings every individual up to $38,000 per person.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a $15 to $20 wage rate or higher, right, after taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't include the local and state benefits that folks get, too, not to mention the education, right, per year is $12,000 per kid. And if you got a couple kids, that's $24,000 a family. And so you're right. These firms are not paying the full cost of doing business here. They're looking for cheap labor. And so, again, the fundamentals are, hey, this illegal immigration thing's got to come to an end. The cheap labor thing's got to come to an end. The welfare thing, where you got 60% labor force participation rate, has got to come to an end. Everybody's got to get back in the workforce, because all of our systems, right, Medicare and Social Security, go on installment by 2034.
Right.
And so and then if we can't do that, then I'm open to, and if firms want to play hardball and not help us change this economy for the good, then we're in a more negative game. And I hate to go there because once you go negative, you're in a tough path. But we got to get everyone playing on the same fair playing field.
All right, so what you're saying, and you made a very interesting analysis there, Doc, so I just want to explore this a little bit. So what you're saying is the driver right now behind the EB-1 and EB-5 visas, which is to get foreign workers into the United States, another form of cheap labor. They come in unabated. But what you're saying is driving that, we have a welfare system that is disincentivizing people to get in the workforce at a $9 or $10 an hour wage because they make more money staying home without doing anything.
Right, absolutely. That's what's going on. You can't compete with that, and it's not even close. I mean, it's double the wage rate for not working. Mm-hmm. And in Maine, the evidence is Maine put in a Democrat governor by accident. They put in a work incentive where people had to show up and fill out resumes and get ready for a job. And the talking point guy showed up there and said, hell, if I got to do all this, I might as well just go to work. And so guess what happened to welfare rolls in Maine? And you can go look this up. This is evidence, right? 80% back in the labor force. 80% decline in welfare recipients by just putting a work requirement in. And so this isn't, I'm not talking theory, I'm talking fact. That is a fact. And we got to fix this as a country because we have productive talent. And you're not doing these people a favor, right? I mean, every single person is a child of God that's been put on this planet for a reason to pursue a higher purpose.
Right.
And that purpose isn't sitting at home just getting a government check.
Right.
Right. Every person is blessed and should be out there using their talents to make this world a better place. And I believe that about every individual. Mm-hmm. And to treat anyone less than that is to have the wrong view of what human beings are.
The main example that you're saying is the people on public assistance in Maine had to go through a system of showing that they were applying for work. And what you're saying is that was so much work, they were better off working.
Right, absolutely.
And so you're saying that...
They said, I got to come in every day for 8 hours. Why am I doing this? I might as well go work.
But absent of that, they would have stayed on public assistance.
Right, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
80% went off. What you're saying is they actually did that by accident.
Well, yeah, I mean, now there's a little heat on the Democrat governor up there for doing that because it's evidence in favor of Republican free market policy. It's like, oops, we didn't mean to show it that clearly.
All right. That is going to be it. We are out of time. I want to thank Dr. Dave Brat for being with us, Congressman, Republican in the 7th District. By the way, the 7th District Convention is on Saturday at the Richmond Convention Center in downtown Richmond. 1,500 people signed up for that. Should be a lot of fun. So you can also go, even if you're not a delegate, you can go as a guest and hang out with the congressman and his friends and family. How about that? More information on the government side, go to brat.house.gov, brat.house.gov. And on the political side, go to davebrat.com. How easy is that? Congressman, Doctor, it's always good to have you, man. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks, John. God bless.
All right.
Have a great day.
Fantastic. When Dr. Brat comes on, we have the most inspiring conversations. Don't you agree? The guy is very smart. In fact, a lot of our congressmen in Virginia are very smart people. Whitman, Griffith, Bob Goodlett, Randy Forbes. I know I'm leaving somebody out, right? But there's a lot of smart. Bobby Scott, highly intelligent. Also, Don Beyer. I know I'm leaving somebody out. But whenever they come on, we have a good conversation.